Ah, the truths about older men who live alone without a woman. Something everyone should know, really. It's a topic that often gets misunderstood, don't you think? Let's unravel these truths together, shall we? If you're a man over 60 living alone, society has painted a picture of your life that's completely wrong. They think you're lonely, struggling, or somehow incomplete. But what if I told you that some of the happiest, healthiest, and most fulfilled men in their golden years are living solo? Before you judge or feel judged, there's something you need to know. The statistics might shock you, and the real-life stories will change how you see independence in your later years. Whether you're living alone by choice or circumstance, or you know someone who is, the next few minutes could transform your entire perspective. What we're about to reveal goes against everything you've been told about aging and companionship. Don't skip ahead, because the fourth truth is the one that changes everything. Let's dive in right now. Welcome back to Life Advice for Older People, where we share real wisdom for real lives. Today we're tackling a topic that affects millions, but rarely gets honest discussion. Older men living alone without a romantic partner. Here's exactly what you'll discover in this video. 3 surprising benefits that solo living senior men experience that married men often don't. 2 critical health factors that determine whether living alone helps or hurts you. 4 practical strategies to thrive independently. And 1 powerful mindset shift that separates men who flourish from those who merely survive. This isn't about promoting isolation or discouraging relationships. This is about truth, dignity, and understanding the real experience of millions of men navigating their golden years independently. We've researched the science, gathered real stories, and consulted gerontology experts to bring you facts, not assumptions. Before we begin, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss our practical advice for living your best life after 60. And if this video helps you or someone you know, please share it. Now, let's uncover these truths together. Let's address the elephant in the room first. When people see an older man living alone, they immediately assume he's lonely, isolated, or that something went wrong in his life. But here's the truth that research keeps confirming. Living alone and being lonely are 2 completely different things. A comprehensive study published in geriatric psychology journals found that men over 65 who live alone report loneliness at nearly the same rate as those who cohabitate with partners. The difference isn't in living arrangements, it's in social connection quality. Let me explain what this actually means for your daily life. Meet Carlton, a 68-year-old retired engineer from Portland. After his divorce at 62, everyone assumed he'd be miserable living alone. 6 years later, Carlton describes his life as the most authentic he's ever lived. Every Tuesday, he volunteers at the community center teaching computer skills. Wednesdays are for his chess club. Thursdays, he video calls his grandchildren across 3 different states. His calendar is full, his purpose is clear, and his connections are meaningful. What's Carlton's secret? He understood something crucial. Independence creates space for intentional relationships rather than obligatory ones. When you live alone, every interaction becomes a choice, not a requirement. You're not maintaining a relationship out of proximity or routine. You're building connections because they genuinely matter to you. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Men who live alone after 60 often develop what psychologists call selective social optimization. This means you become extremely good at identifying which relationships energize you and which drain you. You stop wasting time on social obligations that feel empty and invest deeply in connections that bring joy and meaning. Think about it this way. When you were younger, you might have attended every family gathering, neighborhood barbecue, or office party whether you wanted to or not. Living independently later in life gives you permission to be selective. You can have coffee with your closest friend and skip the acquaintance's birthday party without guilt. This isn't antisocial, it's intelligent energy management. But let me be crystal clear about something important. Independence works beautifully when it's paired with intentionality. The men who thrive living alone are those who actively cultivate their social connections. They don't wait for the phone to ring. They make the call. They don't hope someone invites them out. They organize the gathering. Here's a practical framework that successful solo living men use, the 3-3-3 rule. 3 meaningful in-person interactions per week, 3 phone or video conversations, and 3 activities that involve other people, even if it's just nodding hello at the gym. This structure ensures you're getting regular human connection without it becoming overwhelming or feeling forced. Research from the University of Michigan's Retirement Research Center discovered something fascinating. Men who live alone but maintain this level of social engagement show better cognitive function, lower rates of depression, and even stronger immune systems than isolated men in any living arrangement. The quality of your connections matters infinitely more than your living situation. Now, you might be thinking, but what about those quiet evenings? Doesn't it get lonely? Here's another truth. Solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. Solitude is chosen. Loneliness is imposed. When you come home to an empty house because that's your choice, it feels entirely different than coming home wishing someone was there. Many men discover that living alone allows them to reconnect with parts of themselves they'd lost. Remember those hobbies you set aside, that guitar collecting dust, those books you meant to read. Independence gives you the time and mental space to reclaim your identity beyond your roles as husband, father, or provider. Take Gregory, 71, from Austin. After his wife passed, he initially feared the emptiness. Instead, he discovered a passion for painting he'd suppressed for 40 years. His small apartment became a studio. He joined an art collective with members ranging from 25 to 85. His work now hangs in local cafes. He's not lonely. He's creatively alive in ways he never was before. Here's what you need to ask yourself. Am I alone or am I independent? Am I isolated or am I selective? Am I lonely or am I in solitude? These distinctions matter enormously because they determine your experience and your well-being. The independence paradox is this. By embracing your solo living situation fully, by owning it as a choice rather than viewing it as a circumstance, you open yourself to deeper connections than you might have had when your social life was dictated by proximity and obligation. Now let's talk about something critical, your health. You've probably heard conflicting messages about whether living alone is good or bad for older men's health. Some sources claim it's dangerous, while others suggest it promotes longevity. So what does the actual medical science say? The answer is more nuanced and empowering than you might expect. First, the context matters enormously. A landmark study following over 11,000 men, aged 60+ for 15 years, revealed something crucial. Health outcomes for men living alone depend almost entirely on 2 factors: self-care capability and health literacy. Let me break down what this means in practical terms. Self-care capability is your ability to manage daily health tasks, taking medications correctly, preparing nutritious meals, recognizing when something's wrong, and seeking help appropriately. Men who maintain these skills show virtually identical health outcomes, whether they live alone or with a partner. The problem isn't the living arrangement, it's whether you're capable of managing your health independently. Here's where many men stumble. We were often raised in an era where someone else handled these things. Maybe your mother, then your wife, managed doctor appointments, remembered medications, or noticed when you weren't feeling well. Living alone means you must develop these skills yourself, and it's never too late to learn. Let me introduce you to Leonard, a 73-year-old from Chicago who had a wake-up call 3 years ago. After living alone for a year following his wife's death, he ended up in the emergency room because he'd been ignoring chest pain for days. The doctor's words changed everything. Leonard, you need to become the expert on your own body. No one else is watching out for you now. Leonard did something smart. He created what he calls his health command center. One wall of his kitchen now has a large calendar with every medication time marked, every doctor appointment scheduled, and a simple daily checklist. Did I take my blood pressure? Did I walk today? Did I eat vegetables? Have I drunk enough water? This visible system keeps him accountable to himself. The second factor is health literacy, which means understanding how your body works, what symptoms matter, and when to seek help. Men who live alone and thrive are typically those who've educated themselves about their health conditions, ask questions at doctor visits, and stay informed about age-related changes. Here's a powerful statistic that should motivate you. Men over 65 who actively manage their health and live alone have lower rates of unnecessary hospitalization than men who passively rely on partners to manage their health. Why? Because when you're responsible for yourself, you tend to be more proactive rather than reactive. But let's address the real concern many people have. What happens in an emergency when you live alone? This is a legitimate consideration, and smart men plan for it. Modern technology has created solutions our parents never had access to. Medical alert systems aren't just for falls anymore. Today's devices can detect irregular heart rhythms, monitor blood pressure automatically, and even sense if you haven't moved in an unusual amount of time. They connect to emergency services and designated contacts instantly. If you live alone and don't have one of these systems, this is a wise investment in your independence and peace of mind. Beyond technology, successful solo living men create what I call a wellness network. This includes at least 3 people who check in regularly, whether that's a daily text with your brother, a weekly coffee with a neighbor, or a video call with your daughter every Sunday evening. These aren't just social connections, they're safety nets that notice if something's wrong. Now, here's something that might surprise you. Certain aspects of health actually improve for some men living alone. A study from the Harvard School of Public Health found that men who live independently and cook their own meals tend to have better nutritional variety than those whose partners prepare all meals. Why? Because they become more conscious and intentional about their food choices. Richard, 69, from Seattle, told me something profound. When my wife was alive, I ate whatever she made without thinking. Now I research what's good for my blood sugar, I experiment with different vegetables, and I actually understand nutrition for the first time in my life. My last checkup showed the best cholesterol numbers I've had in 20 years. Mental health is another crucial piece of this puzzle. The data shows that depression rates among older men living alone vary dramatically based on one factor: sense of purpose. Men who structure their days around meaningful activities, whether that's volunteering, hobbies, part-time work, or caring for others, show significantly lower depression rates than married men who've lost their sense of purpose. Your mental health doesn't depend on whether someone lives with you. It depends on whether you're living with intention. The question isn't, do I have a partner? But rather, do I have reasons to get up in the morning that excite me? Let's also discuss physical health maintenance. Men living alone need to be more deliberate about movement and exercise because there's no one suggesting a walk or reminding you that you've been sitting all day. But this can become an advantage. When exercise becomes your choice rather than someone's nagging, it often becomes more sustainable. Consider creating a physical routine that's non-negotiable, like brushing your teeth. Maybe it's a morning walk before coffee, or evening stretches before dinner. The specific activity matters less than the consistency and the fact that you're taking ownership of your physical well-being. Here's the bottom line on health. Living alone isn't inherently risky if you develop systems, stay informed, build a support network, and maintain purpose. The men who struggle with health while living alone are typically those who become passive about their own care. The men who thrive are those who become active participants in their wellness. Let's get practical and talk about something that keeps many older men up at night: the financial and daily management reality of living alone. This is where rubber meets road, and where preparation makes all the difference between thriving and merely surviving. First, the financial picture. Living alone on a fixed income presents unique challenges, but also opportunities that might surprise you. According to retirement planning experts, single men over 60 need approximately 70 to 80% of what a couple needs to maintain the same standard of living. You're not supporting two people, but you're also not splitting fixed costs like housing and utilities. Here's what many men don't realize: your biggest financial advantage when living alone is complete control over your spending priorities. You decide what matters. If you want to spend less on housing to afford that woodworking workshop, you can make that choice without negotiation or compromise. Meet Stanley, a 66-year-old from Denver who downsized brilliantly after his divorce. He sold his 4-bedroom house and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a senior community. His housing costs dropped by 40%. With that savings, he bought a reliable used car, set up an emergency fund, and still had money left for his passion: attending historical lectures and visiting Civil War battlefields. Stanley's strategy illustrates an important principle: right-sizing your life. When you're alone, you don't need the space you once did. A smaller place means lower utilities, less maintenance, reduced property taxes or rent, and fewer things to worry about. Many men discover that simplifying their physical space actually reduces stress and increases their financial security. But here's where many men make a critical mistake. They downsize their living space, but keep all their stuff. You can't fit a 4-bedroom house worth of belongings into a 2-bedroom apartment. This is where you need to be ruthless and strategic about what truly matters to you. Here's a practical framework for this decision: the joy utility test. Every item you own should either bring you genuine joy or serve a regular, practical purpose. If it does neither, it's taking up valuable space in your simplified life. That collection of tools you haven't touched in 5 years? Either start using them for projects or pass them to someone who will. Now let's talk about the daily practical challenges of living alone: cooking, cleaning, laundry, maintenance, yard work, if you have it, shopping, and all those tasks that might have been shared or divided before. How do you manage it all without burning out? The key is systematization. Men who successfully manage solo living create routines that make these tasks automatic rather than overwhelming. Let me give you some proven strategies that work. For cooking, the biggest game changer is batch preparation. Andrew, a 70-year-old from Phoenix, spends Sunday afternoons preparing meals for the week. He makes large portions of 3 different dishes, portions them into containers, and freezes most of them. Every evening he comes home to a home-cooked meal that requires only reheating. He's eating healthier than when he relied on frozen dinners, spending less money and investing only 3 hours once a week. For cleaning, the daily maintenance approach beats the weekend marathon every time. 15 minutes a day keeps your space livable. Monday, you wipe down the bathroom. Tuesday, you vacuum the main room. Wednesday, you clean the kitchen thoroughly. Thursday, you do laundry. Friday, you handle any odds and ends. This approach prevents your home from ever becoming overwhelming while keeping your weekends free for enjoyment. Here's something important about housework: lower your standards to sustainable levels. Your home doesn't need to pass military inspection. It needs to be clean enough to be healthy and organized enough to be functional. Those are very different standards, and recognizing this difference reduces stress enormously. Technology can be your best friend for practical management. Grocery delivery services, online bill pay, automatic prescription refills, and smartphone reminders can handle many tasks that once required significant time and effort. If you're not tech-savvy, this is worth learning. Most senior centers and libraries offer free classes on using smartphones and computers. Let's address home maintenance and repairs, which worry many men living alone. You don't need to become an expert at everything, but you do need a reliable network of professionals and a basic emergency fund. Keep a list of trusted plumbers, electricians, handymen, and other service providers. Get recommendations from neighbors or online community groups. For minor issues, YouTube has tutorials for almost any basic home repair. Lawrence, 72, from Boston, never changed a washer in a faucet before living alone. Now he's fixed leaky faucets, replaced light fixtures, and unclogged drains by following online videos. "I'm not trying to be a professional," he says, "but handling small problems myself saves money and makes me feel capable." Financial planning while living alone requires some specific strategies. First, you need a larger emergency fund than couples do, ideally 9 to 12 months of expenses rather than the typical 6 months. Why? Because you don't have a backup income source if something happens to your health or your primary income stream. Second, organize your financial life so someone trustworthy can step in if needed. This means keeping important documents in one location, making sure someone has power of attorney for financial decisions if you become incapacitated, and ensuring your accounts have designated beneficiaries. Third, monitor your credit and protect yourself from scams. Older men living alone are frequent targets for financial fraud. Never give personal information over the phone to unsolicited callers. Be skeptical of investment opportunities that sound too good, and review your bank and credit card statements regularly for unauthorized charges. Here's a budget framework that works well for men living alone. The 50-30-20 rule, adapted for retirees. Aim for 50% of your income going to needs like housing, utilities, food, and healthcare. Allocate 30% to wants like hobbies, entertainment, and dining out. Put 20% towards savings and unexpected expenses. If your fixed costs exceed 50%, look for ways to reduce housing or other major expenses. Social Security optimization is crucial. If you haven't filed yet and you're divorced after a marriage of 10+ years, you may be eligible for benefits based on your ex-spouse's record. Many men don't know this and leave money on the table. Consider consulting a Social Security specialist to maximize your benefits. The men who manage solo living best are those who see practical challenges not as burdens, but as opportunities to develop new competencies. Every skill you master, every system you create, and every challenge you overcome reinforces your confidence and capability. Now we're going to discuss something that touches the heart of this entire topic: relationships, connection, and intimacy when you're an older man living alone. This is where the most misconceptions exist and where the truth can be the most liberating. Let's start with what many people assume, that older men living alone have given up on relationships, romance, or meaningful connections. This assumption is not only wrong, it's the exact opposite of reality for many men. Living alone doesn't mean living without love, partnership, or deep human connection. It means experiencing these things differently. There's a growing relationship model that researchers call living apart together, or LAT relationships. These are committed, often long-term partnerships where both people maintain separate residences. And guess what? This arrangement is increasingly common among older adults and often leads to greater relationship satisfaction than cohabitation. Let me introduce you to Raymond, 67, from Minneapolis. 3 years ago, he met Sophia, 64, at a community theater production. They've been in a committed relationship ever since, seeing each other 4 to 5 times a week, taking trips together, and supporting each other through health challenges and family matters. But they each maintain their own apartments across town from each other. People think it's strange, Raymond explains, but it's actually perfect. I love my space, my routines, and my independence. Sophia feels the same way. When we're together, it's because we want to be, not because we're stuck under the same roof. Every date still feels special. We never take each other for granted because every moment together is intentional. Research backs up Raymond's experience. Studies from relationship psychologists show that LAT relationships among older adults report high levels of intimacy, commitment, and satisfaction, while maintaining lower levels of conflict than cohabitating couples. Why? Because you avoid many daily friction points that come from shared living spaces while preserving the emotional and romantic connection. This relationship model offers something particularly valuable to men who've spent decades in traditional marriages: the freedom to be yourself completely. Your partner doesn't see your every mood, habit, or quirk. You show up as your best self because you've had space to recharge. You're not negotiating bathroom schedules, thermostat settings, or what to watch on television. But late relationships aren't the only way men living alone maintain meaningful connections. Many discover that their solo living situation allows them to deepen relationships with adult children, grandchildren, siblings, and friends in ways that weren't possible when their primary relationship consumed most of their emotional energy. Consider Victor, 69, from Atlanta. After his wife passed, he found himself building stronger relationships with his 3 adult sons than he'd had in years. "When my wife was alive, she was the emotional center of family communications," Victor explains. "I'd hear about my kids' lives secondhand. Now they call me directly. We meet for breakfast. We text about sports and politics. I know their lives in ways I never did before." This points to an important truth. Many men who were married for decades let their spouse handle most of the emotional labor of maintaining family relationships. Living alone forces you to develop these skills yourself, and many men discover they're capable of much deeper emotional connection than they'd ever demonstrated before. Friendship takes on new importance when you live alone, particularly male friendships. Older men often struggle with friendship because they were socialized to be independent, stoic, and to express connection through shared activities rather than emotional vulnerability. But men who thrive living alone usually develop at least 1 or 2 close friendships where real conversation happens. These aren't just golf buddies or guys I have a beer with. These are men you can call when you're struggling, who check on you when you're ill, and with whom you share both victories and vulnerabilities. If you don't have friendships like this, building them is one of the most important investments you can make in your well-being. Here's how to develop deeper male friendships after 60. Start with shared activities, but gradually move toward real conversation. After the chess game or the fishing trip, suggest coffee and ask a real question. How are you really doing with your son moving across the country? Or what's been on your mind lately? Most men are hungry for these conversations, but don't know how to initiate them. Now let's address intimacy and romance directly, because many people assume these are off the table for older men living alone. The reality is far more complex and hopeful. Physical and emotional intimacy remain important throughout life, and living alone doesn't preclude either. Some men choose to date without any intention of remarrying or cohabitating. They enjoy companionship, romance, and yes, physical intimacy, while maintaining their independence. Modern dating has challenges at any age, but it also offers opportunities through online platforms specifically designed for older adults seeking meaningful connections. Other men discover that intimacy doesn't require a romantic partner at all. Intimacy means being truly known by another person, and this can happen through deep friendships, close family relationships, or even therapeutic relationships. The need for connection is real, but it doesn't have to look the way it did when you were 30. The key is intentionality. Are you choosing your relationship structure consciously, or are you simply defaulting to isolation because it's easier? Men who thrive living alone are those who've decided deliberately what kinds of connections matter to them and who actively cultivate those connections. Let's also acknowledge that some men living alone do so not entirely by choice. Perhaps you'd prefer a partner but haven't found the right person, or you've experienced rejection in the dating world. This is real and painful, and it's okay to acknowledge disappointment while still building a rich life with the connections available to you. Your relationship status is not your worth. Your living situation is not a measure of your lovability or success. You are complete as you are. And from that place of completeness, you can build whatever connections bring meaning to your life. So where does all this leave us? If you're an older man living alone, or you know one, here's what we've discovered. The narrative society tells about your life is incomplete and often completely wrong. Living alone doesn't equal loneliness when you're intentional about connection. Your health can thrive when you take ownership of self-care and build the right systems. Your finances and daily life are manageable with practical strategies and smart simplification. And your capacity for meaningful relationships can actually deepen when you're clear about what you want and invest deliberately in the connections that matter. The men who flourish living alone share common characteristics. They're intentional rather than passive. They build systems that support their independence. They maintain strong social connections while honoring their need for solitude. They see challenges as opportunities to develop new competencies, and most importantly, they refuse to accept society's pity or judgment about their living situation. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop seeing living alone as something that happened to you and start seeing it as something you're actively choosing and shaping. Even if circumstances brought you here, you have complete agency over how you experience it. Your solo life can be rich with purpose, connection, growth, and joy. It's not a consolation prize or an unfortunate circumstance. It's a valid, potentially beautiful way to spend your later years. The only question is, will you approach it with intention and courage? Thousands of men are living proof that the answer can be yes. Now you have the knowledge to join them.